Today I will explain how I came up with my final project in my graphic design major. This project was for my capstone class at my community college. A capstone class is one of the last classes you take to be able to graduate. This class shows how much you have learned and what you can do with this new information. Unknown to me, this would be the last class I took towards any graphic design degree. This class was taught by two of my favorite professors, and we knew about this class the semester before we were in it, and it was the first time this class was being taught. I knew in this new environment I could experiment more than previous classes, and I was very excited to do that. The first day of this semester, we were told that we would be making a wall that would combine animation and graphic design or anything else we might want. We were told that we were going to learn more about typography and that we would have to make a wall that looked something like this. I was super bummed. I wanted to learn more about typography, but in the past 2 years, I'd been making graphics for different projects, and I wanted to show how much I had grown. I didn't want to put a few words together in an interesting way, and I had no idea what I would do to make this fun. After my professors realized no one was excited for that idea, we moved on to making a logo using your initials. They still wanted to do the typography project, but they said they would help us work our way to a final project. I wasn't too excited about this idea either because I wouldn't be able to change the projects to fit together better in the future, and my professors were not going to share the future projects with us, so how would I be able to visually plan out an entire wall without knowing the projects that would be in the wall? I decided to use the color scheme from my snail logo because I knew that I liked the colors and that would help the works look more cohesive. I had a lot of ideas for this logo, but I ended up on this one. I made this logo based on Pac-Man. I've always had an interest in Pac-Man, not like a crazy one, but I think the game is pretty fun. I also have 2 mini Pac-Man games that I used to play a lot when I was younger. I also based this logo on a grumpy expression. People tend to describe me as someone who doesn't show much emotion. I personally would disagree with this, but I understand where it comes from, and I like the idea of a grump Pac-Man, so I went with it. The next project was a saying or phrase. This phrase had to describe you as a person and had to have a graphic element. They showed us these images for inspiration, but I didn't like this idea, so I tried to look for more unique typography examples. I didn't have many ideas for this because I thought most of them would come off as cringy. Instead, I reflected a bit on my childhood. I was a very quiet child, especially to new people, and I noticed that people always want the quiet kid to talk, but they never really care to listen to what they are saying. I decided to make this phrase and visual for my project. At first, my professor didn't like this idea very much, but after I explained it a bit more, he was more on board. I didn't have any other ideas, and I really wanted to be done with this project, so I didn't really care if he didn't like it. The next project was an icon for the wall. At this point in the class, the wall idea had gotten really confusing. I didn't know what was going on, and I had a lot of cool ideas that I knew would never happen, but I was desperately trying to figure out what this wall would look like. It was around midterms, and my professors kept harping on us about not having any sketches or ideas for the wall. I was pretty frustrated, but I wanted to make sure this final idea would be good. Then one day I went to class and everything changed. All of a sudden, my professor was going on and on about how this class wasn't supposed to be stressful. Yeah, right. He said that instead of making new projects, we should use the projects we already have for the wall. Now the wall was a graphic, which was good news for me, but we had to use old graphics for it, so not really good news. My professor showed us some examples of collaging all of our old works together, but that was boring, so I didn't listen to him and just did whatever I wanted. I am a rule follower, so I did ask if it was okay if I didn't do that, and he said yes, so it's actually fine. The only problem was that he said if I didn't do his idea, it had to be really good. Oh brother, here we go with this guy. I had literally no ideas that were good enough. I had an idea for a fairy themed wall, a politics themed wall, and a childhood themed wall. All of them were awful. I didn't sketch them up, but in my head they were uggo, so you just have to believe me at this point. We walked around the hallways to find a space for our wall, and my professor was saying we could do anything. He said you can even put it around the water fountain as a joke, and then I said, yeah, I'm gonna do that. My professor kept harping that we had to use our self-portrait on the wall. I thought more about my self-portrait. I have a different video that goes over all of the art that I made in 2023, including my self-portrait, so if you'd like to hear more about that, check out my other video. One thing about me is I'm going to draw fish in aquatic life. I don't know why I do this so often, I just really vibe with the ocean, but I thought it would be really cool if I did an octopus looming over a water fountain. This would stay in my aquatic theme that I had going pretty much my entire time at the community college, and it went well with the water fountain. I did a small sketch and showed my professor. He didn't seem too crazy about it, but he let me do it. I really just went with the first sketch that I made, which normally isn't a good idea, but it seemed to work out this time. I don't know. I spent the rest of the semester stressing about drawing this stupid octopus while my classmates were chilling in the other room, arranging their works into really cool collages. I had to measure the water fountain to make sure I drew the octopus in the correct proportions. It would surround the fountain correctly. I was really freaking nervous about this part because I am not known for being good with numbers, and my professor made a big deal about it, saying if I messed up, I wouldn't be able to reprint it. I'm making my professor sound like a mean guy. He's really not. He's really nice and great, but the paper for printing was super expensive and we had a firm deadline for these projects, so it makes sense that he would be strict about it. Also, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned there were 2 professors, and right now you're probably like, oh my gosh, she freaking lied to us. No, I didn't. My other professor had some life stuff happen, prohibiting him from coming to class, and I'll talk more about that later. I measured the fountain a few times and then started drawing. The only problem now was that I had a fully drawn octopus and literally nothing else. I tried so many different options for putting my work in the background or flowing around the octopus, but nothing looked good. In fact, it looked awful. I only had a week or so to fully finish this wall, so I was panicking a little bit. Then I thought about a typical scary bodyguard because that is kind of what I was basing the octopus on. Normally, they have cool tattoos. What if I made my art tattoos on the octopus? I tried it and it didn't look great at first, but after changing the layer modes a bit, it turned out pretty cool. I moved the tattoos around until I liked how they looked. The only problem now was the background was too bare. I decided to add the fish from my website background to the background of the wall, and it filled up some of the space, but not enough. My first piece at my community college that I felt proud of was this one. The details are pretty simple, so I thought it might be able to get away with putting them in the background of the wall without it being too distracting. Turns out, it worked. I showed my professor, who was of course mad that I wasn't already done, and he said he liked it. He put it up around the water fountain and I measured it perfectly. Now, you may be thinking, oh, this is the end of the video. How fun. Wrong. You might have forgotten about my other professor. He was back at school and wanted us to make a digital wall. We had about 4 to 5 weeks left until finals, and now we had to make a whole new wall, but not really because he wanted us to make an animated version of our other wall. This is the animated version of my wall. It took me about a week to fully plan and make this animation. In that time, the digital wall assignment changed a lot and we learned a lot more about our animation software. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to take this class with both of my professors. I learned a lot in this class about typography and animation. This class and my animation professor led me to change my major from graphic design to animation, and I talk more about that in a different video that will be linked here. I have officially graduated from my community college and I'm transferring to a new school. I'm so glad I made the decision to attend my community college. I met a lot of great people who I hope to be friends with for the rest of my life. I learned so much about so many things, even outside of art, and I truly think that this college made me a better person.